Thanks, Michelle. Alrighty, can you guys see my screen, Michelle? Are you able to see my screen there?
Yeah, we sure can.
Okay, excellent. So a bit about me, I'm Ashwin Krishnamurthi. I'm a program manager in the customer advisory team here at Microsoft. So our topic for today is robotic process automation, more than just a buzzword. The reason why I chose this title is because only recently are companies gaining steam in their implementation of how RPA works, right? In 2011, 2012, a lot of them were talking about it, but really there weren't a lot of people gaining value out of it. And one of the common myths people have around robotic process automation is, hey, a physical robot actually doing your job. Well, let's quell some myths there. It's not that. It's more of a software which does human interaction based actions. It mimics what a human would do on their computer. So that's the thought process. Okay, having said that, let's move to the next slide here. Just give me a second. All right, so this is our agenda for here. So we want to talk about what RPA is, a brief introduction about Power Automate, and what are the various flavors that Power Automate offers from a digital process automation standpoint, a robotic process automation standpoint. Also conversations about Process Advisor and AI Builder, and a demonstration to kind of wrap it all up and show how one could build an automation of their own. And then final thoughts around automation center of excellence. If you're wanting to mature in your RPA journey, a center of excellence practice is super important. So we will briefly talk about it as well. So let's talk about RPA. So as I was saying, RPA is a software that mimics human interactions, right? So however you interact with your computer, you have the ability to record it and you can run it pretty much. And there are various modes in which you could run it. But just to keep it high level here, some of the use cases which you can potentially solve using robotic process automation is say, hey, a lot of the times you have folks opening up a web page, taking in details from the web page, and then passing it on to a third party system. Right? This is a very typical use case. And people do this over and over, and a lot of this work is very mundane, and you don't want to be doing it. And the thing with mundane activities is because there's really no drive in doing it, the number of errors or the error rate could also be potentially high. Well, with robotic process automation, it solves that problem. There are also cases wherein you might want to move files and folders from one source to another, from multiple sources to one target. And all of this could be automated as well. And the error rate using a software, it gives you a good advantage. The error rate is super low. So that's an advantage by using RPA. Now let's talk about Power Platform. Power Automate is a part of Power Platform. It comes under the umbrella of Power Platform. But Power Automate is not alone. In terms of business application tools that Microsoft offers, you have Power BI, Power Apps, and Power Virtual Agents. And what's so cool about it is you have all of these technology underpinnings which you could take advantage of, or you could leverage, right? So along with all of the great tools Power Platform offers, you have Microsoft Dataverse, Data Connectors, and AI Builder. So a little bit about what Dataverse is. Dataverse at the highest level of abstraction is a database, but it's more than just a database. But for the scope of this session, let's call it a database. And why is it important? Because this acts as a common database for all the tools out there, for Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, right? So you can have your input data set of records brought in from, say, Power Apps, and you could pull that out in Power Automate. So that versatility makes automation building a lot more easy, makes application development a lot more easier. And data connectors, this is pretty much the bread and butter of how the whole Power Platform works. There are over 400 plus connectors today, and which connects to various applications, ServiceNow, SharePoint, pretty much you name it, it's out there. And you can use these connectors which offer that API support, and you could use the APIs as part of your automation journey itself. AI Builder, again, for using AI Builder, one need not be a data scientist, you need not be a machine learning engineer, but you can leverage the power of AI as part of your application development or your workflow automation. We will talk about it. There is a demonstration to show how that's done. A little bit about the various tools here. You guys might already be familiar with it. Power BI is a business analytics tool. It's used heavily for reporting and dashboarding. It's one of the, I would say, the best Power BI tools out there in the market today. Power Apps truly drives the notion of low code, no code app development. You don't need to be a professional developer to build code using Power Apps. Power Automate for workflow automation, it solves both your DPA or digital process automation scenarios and robotic process automation scenario. I'll elaborate what they mean in our next set of slides. Power Virtual Agents truly drives the chatbot experience. And the beauty of it is you could also use AI Builder as part of your, as you building your chatbot itself. So this is how all of them kind of gel well beautifully in the Power Platform universe. So let's talk about really what does Power Automate offer? Why is that the gem of the Power Platform toolset? One of the things is Power Automate offers automation at scale. Anyone can develop automation using Power Automate. Not just that, you can also have your automation distributed across many systems, right? So scale from a organizational perspective in terms of pretty much anyone in your organization can build or use Power Automate to automate many of the things they do. And automation at scale in a perspective that you can distribute it across many machines. You're not simplified to one machine running your automation, right? Truly taking advantage of the parallel computing concepts. Second thought is seamless secure integration. As I was saying earlier, you have the advantage of 400 plus connectors, right? So there's likely a good chance of whatever you're looking to automate as part of your workflow automation strategy, there's already a connector out there which you could leverage, right? That's a thought process. And next off is accelerated productivity. So the whole idea of Power Automate is to take mundane out of your life. You want to have the opportunity to take repetitive work out of people's lives so that they can focus on what truly matters to them. To support that, we do offer templates. We do offer low code or no code tools, which is very easy to grasp. Someone need not be a developer again to build a lot of this. And intelligent automation, again, with AI and machine learning, which is in widespread use today, pretty much across the platform, you could leverage that as well with Power Automate, right? And again, there are many simple to use pre-trained models that pretty much work in a drag and drop fashion that you could include as part of your workflow automation. So these are certain things which Power Automate offers. All right, so deep diving into the title here is, so basically Power Automate comes in two flavors, right? When you're talking about automation, at the highest level of abstraction, you're looking to automate applications which have an API, and you're also looking to automate applications which do not have an API, right? So for applications like say Office 365, ServiceNow, Dynamics 365, there are already ready APIs which you could leverage using our connectors. So that's what we call as digital process automation, and that need or that challenge is solved using Power Automate, or what we call Power Automate flows. It used to be called Power Automate flows, now it's generally called Power Automate. And there are also cases wherein you may not have that API support that you may need, right? Oftentimes with legacy web applications or terminal applications, you may not have that API support, right, or the out of the box API support. In such cases, RPA is used, wherein you use a software to scrape data of web pages, scrape data of desktop pages, and then you could use that in your third-party systems, right? So you could automate human interactions using robotic process automation in areas where there aren't readily available APIs. So that's the thought process. So first off, let's talk about DPA, or digital process automation. That is automation which can be conducted by leveraging APIs that various tools today offer. So when we talk about API automation, it is synonymous to using cloud flows in the Microsoft world, right? So basically, when we talk of cloud flows again, the one thing which really matters is the use of connectors. Like I said, there are over 400 plus connectors in the Power Automate world. And within connectors, there are two basic notions. One of it is what we call triggers, and the other is what we call actions. So, so that's the idea of connectors. So connectors is constituted by triggers and actions. Like I said, we have 400 plus connectors across Microsoft Teams, Outlook, RS. You could even automate your RSS feeds. So there is a plethora of connectors that you could take advantage of within Power Automate. In areas where you do not have connectors, you also do have the opportunity to build your own connectors, considering there's that enough groundwork for you to leverage that in the applications that you're looking to automate. So let's talk about triggers and actions. Like I said, for a cloud flow, you have what's called connectors, and what really constitutes connectors is a combination of triggers and actions. So a trigger, by the name of it itself, is an event that starts a set of actions, right? So it's that initial point, which is why a particular process starts, right? So just to give you an example, say you receive a new email in your inbox. So that could be a trigger for a set of actions to be conducted. You're adding a new element to your list in SharePoint. That could be a trigger for a set of actions to be conducted. So that's the concept of what we call triggers. And usually, this is how triggers are named within the Power Automate cloud infrastructure when a new response is submitted, when Virtual Agents call a flow. So usually there's that when or a condition to why a trigger is set. Now, actions. So actions, again, just by the name of it, is a set of actions or set of events that happen after a trigger is initiated, right? So in the action suite, you have all of your programming semantics, you have your application actions, you have AI builder actions, anything like a for loop, anything like a switch condition, all of that is managed or comes under the umbrella of actions. So when we talk of flows, you can distinguish flows into 5 parts, right? And the first 3 out here, the automated, cloud, instant, and scheduled, are specifically cloud-based. And business process flow, again, can be cloud or desktop-based. And with the desktop flow-based flows, they are very specific for automating web pages and desktop applications in your environment. So that's how the differentiation happens. So let's talk about cloud flows for a bit. So within cloud flows, you have automated, instant, and scheduled cloud flows. So again, automated cloud flows are flows which are based on a specific trigger. So whenever you do have a new list added to a SharePoint, that would trigger an automated flow. Instant flows are flows which don't have a specific trigger. You are the trigger for it, right? So you have your coworker saying, hey, can you move this bunch of files from this folder onto this folder? Now, then that's more of a trigger that is human initiated. So you have the option to go and click the process yourself and start the process yourself. So that's the idea of instant flows. Schedule flows. So for example, if you had to move folders and files within folders at a set time during the day, you could leverage schedule flows. Business process flows helps you, it gives you a guided experience wherein people can automate multi-step processes. It will guide you through the whole process. User can follow that particular guide to do a set process. So the advantage of doing so is that everybody has a common a roadmap or a common path algorithm in which they would execute a set of actions. So you have that, you could leverage business process flows for it. Desktop flows, like I said, it's all about automating your web-based or desktop-based applications within your ecosystem wherein you don't have an API available already. So this is how you could distinguish flows in the Power Automate world. And to make it a lot more easier, there are readily available templates in Power Automate that you could leverage, right? So if you're looking to automate an application, there's a good chance there's already a template out there. And the advantage of using a template is you don't have to really create anything from scratch. All you'll need to do is just configure it to your environment based on your particular use case. So that's the advantage of using templates. You don't have to create anything from scratch. There's just readily available templates out there. But that's not always the case. There are areas wherein you may not have a ready template. But for most applications today, there are readily available templates which you could use as a base from. Okay, so we spoke about cloud flows, which solve the digital process automation problem. Now let's talk about desktop flows. Now, desktop flows, like I said, is to solve your web-based automation and desktop-based automation problems, right? So first off, um, the Microsoft implementation for desktop-based automation is what we call PAD, or Power Automate Desktop. It's an app that sits in your computer, which is very straightforward to use. This is part of our software motive acquisition. We've evolved the tool over the past few years now. And some of the salient features within PAD are that automation is super easy with it. One can author a process quite easily in the PAD world. It has enhanced error handling. So for all of the citizen devs out there who are looking to build automation, it's very easy for you to debug your flow and fix it as and when you build them. And one of the major features within PAD is that you have the option to build hybrid automations. As in, you could, as part of your solution, you could have both of your cloud-based flows and as well as your desktop-based flows, all part of one solution. So it helps you in the interpolation of data between these various sources, and helps you build automation much more brilliantly. And one of the things is we recommend that PAD works best with any of the Windows Win32 based applications. It does support other applications as well, but our recommendation is more towards Windows 32, Win32 based application. And it's also, in terms of browser support, it works well with Edge, it works well with Chrome as well. These are the ones which we recommend. And another major advantage with using Power Automate Desktop is you can record pretty much all your actions, and you also have the option of editing it and setting up any dynamic values as you may need as part of that experience. So adding to it, what does really the PAD console look like? What does it contain? So within PAD, you have your various actions. And as part of your action suite, you have your for loops, wherein you can loop through a particular set of arrays. You have the option to build your own variables. You have the option to set your variables, set them dynamically. Also, there is all of the built-in image recognition technology that you could leverage for easy data extraction. So that's part of the Power Automate desktop experience as well. All right. So for all of those pro code developers out there, you also have the opportunity of writing your own VB scripts, Python and JavaScript as part of the tooling, right? You could also leverage subflows. The concept of subflows is you can modularize your process. So say you're wanting to automate a very complex process. So for the purpose of debugging, for the purpose of really breaking down your flow, you have the option of creating subflows, which can be then called off a main flow, right? So that's that feature as well. And messages, so you can have your user generated messages as part of the process automation itself, depending on the need. Um, and to top it all, you also do have the option of recognizing images as part of the experience. It also does offer very rich logging. So you can see when your flow was executed, how long it took from a duration perspective, what was the status, did it succeed, did it fail? And you also have the option to go and debug it onto saying why it failed if it did fail. So all of these are great features within Power Automate Desktop. As I said, Power Automate Desktop works works well with the Cloudflow component itself. And that's the concept. So you could have your UI, you could have your Cloudflow, you could have your Power Automate Desktop flow, all as part of one solution, which makes it super straightforward and super easy. So let's talk about this for a brief as well, attended versus unattended automation. So within Power Automate Desktop, you have two flavors. One of it is called attended and the other is called unattended. Attended is mostly used for productivity scenarios, wherein you bring in the concept of human in the loop, where say 60% of the process is automated, but there's another 40% wherein requires a human to go and do the rest of the part. And why would that 40% not be automated? Because oftentimes when it comes to automation, there might be areas which the bot cannot really perform well. There might be various variations in which how a particular process is executed. So in those cases, attended is a great way of automating. In unattended, where say most of your automation is can be automated. A good portion of it, say 95% of it, can be automated. Unattended is a great way. And the beauty of it with unattended is you can run this on a virtual machine. You don't have to worry about it. You can schedule it. And as part of your logging process, you'll be able to remotely know whether the process was successful in its automation or objective. So that's the thought process when it comes to attended versus unattended in the Power Automate desktop world. So it's super easy to install RPA Power Automate Desktop. It comes with Windows 11. It's super straightforward to install, and there is rich knowledge articles out there that you could leverage to that note. So really, just to sum it up all, Power Automate offers end-to-end automation. You have Power Automate Desktop, which solves all of your desktop-based automation needs, and Power Automate itself, which solve all of your API-based automation needs.
So Ashwin, as we move into the next session, there's a couple questions out there. I don't know if you want to open chat and talk to it or if you want me to read them to you. Completely up to you.
Michelle, is it okay we can take the questions to the end if that's okay?
Oh yeah, that's totally fine. And everyone, feel free to still ask your questions in here. We'll definitely get to them.
Sweet. Thanks, Michelle. Alrighty, so let's talk a bit about Process Advisor. So Process Advisor comes under the Power Automate suite. And the reason why we have Process Advisor is because not all processes are created equal. There are certain processes which makes best sense to automate. There are certain times when you don't want it to automate because the cost involved in building the automation can far outweigh for you to actually just manually do it. Considering the number of variations, considering the number of times your target systems you're looking to automate might have a certain downtime. So Process Advisor helps you solve a lot of those challenges. So what Process Advisor does is it gives you metrics onto how often a particular process is executed a certain way. There are many ways in which you could execute a process to reach a certain objective from a human standpoint. So it helps you kind of streamline and understand where most of your human users, what most of your human users are doing as part of their process execution. So that's the concept of Process Advisor. So it gives you statistics onto how a user runs a particular process for a certain objective. So let's talk more about this in detail. So what you do as part of the Process Advisor set of steps is you create a process automation um, using your Power Automate desktop. You share it across a lot of your colleagues who are part of, say, the same department who are also doing the same process. And they have the option of recording how they interact with their with the desktop or a web-based application. Once you've done that, now you have a rich set of records which say, hey, this is how this particular process A is being executed by many of our users. Now with that analytics, you can then choose, okay, these are areas where I can streamline. Say John, Mary, Harry, or all of them are automating this process. John and Mary may be using a particular approach. Harry might be an outlier. He might be automating, or he might be running the process a different way. So with Process Advisor, you have the opportunity to look at all the three cases and then kind of streamline into saying, hey, this is the fastest way in which you can meet your particular objective in doing this process. So it helps you streamline your processes. And from an automation perspective, before you actually automate anything, it's important that your process is streamlined. Because if you are automating a broken process, it's only going to be a more repetitive broken process. It's going to be a faster repetitive broken process, which doesn't serve any purpose. So it's important that it's streamlined before it's automated, and Process Advisor helps you with that need. So this is how Process Advisor works. So as you can see here, you have a set of steps which help you, which talk about how a particular objective is met while building your process. As part of this, it also tells you about the various times it takes to, as part of the process execution itself. Anything with a darker color here means that that particular application was used more often by most of your users. So that has a darker. So this the invoice reviewed is a process which all of your users have at some point navigated while they were looking to execute the process. So that's the thought process. And then it also talks about the variants, the cases, and activities as part of that experience. So that's with Process Advisor. So once you have a good idea what to automate using Process Advisor, then you go ahead and automate the process using Power Automate. So that's the idea of Process Advisor. Let's talk about AI Builder. So AI Builder, like I said, it's something which is used across the board all throughout Power Platform. Um, what AI Builder does from a Power Automate perspective is you can leverage a lot of those pre-built models as part of your workflow automation itself. You also have the option to customize a particular model based on your use case. Like I said, AI Builder is part of the common framework. You can use it across all of your applications within the Power Platform world. So this is the slide which talks about it. So when we talk about AI models, there are two types, right? One of what we call is the custom AI models and then the pre-built AI models. In custom AI models, where you will have to provide information and train your model for that to be used as part of your automation. In pre-built AI models, along with the Microsoft suite, we have areas which are already trained. We have models which are already trained, which can be readily used as part of your automation itself. So those are the cases wherein you use pre-built AI models. So let's talk about what are cases for custom AI models and what are the cases for pre-built AI models. So for the custom AI models, the thought process is basically when you talk of custom AI models, we have entity extraction, form processing, object detection, and prediction. Right? These are some of the areas. So let's talk about a few of this. So object detection is, say, you want to detect a set of images for a particular content. So you have a couple of Coke and Pepsi cans out there. With object detection, you can identify how many of them are Coke and how many of them are Pepsi cans. So that's an advantage of using object detection. You could use object detection, form processing as well as part of the custom AI models. You can feed the system a couple of forms, and you could tell what are the key areas of interest that you're looking to extract from that form. And with that rich data set, you can then the system will have a readily generated model available that you could use as part of your automation. You can also use it for prediction scenarios, wherein if you give a rich set of data onto the model, it can build algorithms based on that. So when you're using it as part of your automation, it can use that model to predict where that information could be, say for some sort of a finance forecasting analysis. All of that can be leveraged using custom AI models. So pre-built AI models, like I said, there are many models as part of the suite itself that you could take advantage of. Some of the major concepts or salient features there are text translation. So you have a document in Spanish and you want that translated onto English. So using the pre-built AI models, the model will be able to detect that, hey, the language which you're looking to translate is Spanish and the target language which you're looking to set it to is English, and it can do it automatically. It can also do text recognition from images. There's also a business card reader as part of the model, wherein if you were to give it a set of business cards, it'll accurately identify the name, the address, and relevant information that you're looking to detect. So let's look at an example here. So here, let's look at a form processing system. So you want to identify um, key values as part of the form. So let's see how we use Power Automate and the Power Automate AI and all of the various connectors as part of automating this scenario. So this is the use case. This company receives over 1,500 invoices each month. So a lot of this has been done manually by their staff. And they came up to us to saying, hey, how do we have this automated? And what we realized is AI Builder is a great way in which you could automate this and take out the mundane out of people's lives so that they can focus onto something that's more interesting to them. So it involves three steps. Basically, the first step is you upload your various documents, right? You first off train the model to saying what are the key areas of fields of interest that you're looking to identify from the document. And once the model is trained, then you have a published model which you can take advantage of as part of your automation. The beauty of it is the published model can be used both for Power Apps and Power Automate. So you have one model which you could leverage for both your applications. So a typical use case is as such, right? So you would have your suppliers. Your suppliers would send emails with documents. The documents might have carry invoices. All of it comes onto a common service mailbox. And then you use the power of Power Automate to download a lot of these invoices onto a common shared file location. Then you use process documents, use to process documents using AI Builder, and that way you can extract all of your key value pairs or your areas of interest as part of that particular invoice. And finally, you can use Power Apps as part of the experience to review all of the information has indeed been processed correctly. So this is a typical scenario. So let's look at a demo on how this can be achieved. So I have a recording here that I could run to tell you how the demonstration would work. Let me know if you guys can hear it. All right, so as part of this demonstration, I'd like to showcase the features of AI Builder and how you could use that cognitive intelligence to build your workflow automation using Power Automate. So first things first, let's get to the build subsection within AI Builder. So this leads us to the AI Builder landing page. So as you can see, AI Builder offers many features. So some of them here are you could categorize information, you can classify them based on certain categories. You could extract entities from documents. You could process forms, detect objects within an image, and even predict or a forecast based on certain set of data that you might provide to the model. So if you don't want to train your models and really just take advantage of all of those out of the box solutions, that's possible as well. So some of the features or some of them which come under that suite, the business card reader, you could read data of business cards, you could translate text from one language to the other, and even detect languages as and when as part of the forms that it might process. So really there are various features within AI Builder that you could take advantage of. But for this demonstration and presentation, what we are interested in is the forms processing model. So within the forms processing model, the first thing you'll have to name your model. So let's call it test AI model. So once you've given it a name, the next step is you'll have to let the system know what information you're looking to extract from the document it is going to read. So first off, it's an invoice that we are wanting to um, subject the system to and extract data or information from. So let's see the structure of the invoice itself. All right. So this is the structure, typical structure of the invoice the system would be subjected to. So as you can see, there's an invoice number, there's a balance due date. There's also a table which shows all of the items that have been purchased with the total amount. It shows also a bill to information and also a contact information, an address to the billing party, the party who purchased or for whom the invoice has been created, and also from the company who has delivered the invoice. So in this case, it's Conteso Electronics, and also the relevant address is part of that entity. All of that information is captured in this invoice. So this is the general structure of the invoice. Okay, now that we have seen the structure, there's only certain information that we want to derive from the document. And this is totally a personal choice. So I would want to derive the invoice number, the balance due, the bill to information, the due date information, and also the contact information. All right, now that we've instructed the system to tell what entities to look for, what fields you're interested in, the next step is to tag them in the document. So for that, we need to provide a set of samples or examples for the system to understand what kind of documents we are looking to process so that it can form a meta model based on that information we provide. So you could select your documents from various sources. It could be from an Azure Blob Storage. You could also leverage SharePoint. But for an example here, we're wanting to upload documents from a local storage. So let me load these 5 PDFs. So the documents are being uploaded into the system. All the 5 documents have been successfully uploaded. So the next step now is to tag the document for all of the fields of interest that we are looking for. The first thing I want to tag is invoice, the balance due, the bill to information, the due date, and the contact information. We do this recursively for all the 5 documents. So the more the samples you provide, easier it is for the system to identify your fields of interest. It gets a better understanding of the structure. We're up to our final document here. All right, now that we've tagged all of that information we're wanting to collect, the next step is to train our model. So really this gives the time for the system to understand all of the tagging that we've done and the documents that we've uploaded, and it comes up with a meta model of sorts that we can then later on use as part of a workflow automation. So it takes a few minutes for the model to be trained. It's still in a training status. Okay, now the model's been trained. Let's click on the model here. And the next step is to publish the model. This is an important step because once the model is published, then you can use that model as part of your Power Apps and Power Automate. So this is an important step to do so. So as part of this, you could also see the selected fields that we are interested in. And it also shows the various ways in which you can use your model. You can use it in Power Automate, Power Apps, and also there's all that supporting document to explain how that can be done. All right, so now let's test our model. So let's just open up one of the documents here to see how it does test. It's analyzing, and as you can see, it's identified all of the fields of interest which we are interested in. So great, our model works. Now the next step is to use it as part of a Power Automate flow. So now let's see how that can be done. So what I want to do here is leverage the templates, the built-in templates that are part of the Power Automate suite. And you'll know how easy it is to leverage those built-in templates and the way in which these templates have been built. We've looked at many patterns and practices, identified common use cases, and we've built templates around that so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So one of the things which we want to do as part of this demonstration is we want the flow or the Power Automate flow, the workflow, to read an email, download the contents, the attachment as part of that mail, and send it over to the AI builder function. Then based on how we've trained the model, here it's called test AI model, based on how we've trained the test AI model, which we should be able to identify the key fields of interest that we are looking to extract. And this can be passed over to downstream systems. So in this example here, once we have extracted that information, the information is then sent through mail as part of the feedback loop so that the user understands that all of that information which is required has been extracted as it should. So let me choose the first option here. As you can see, it's opened up a template and all of the connections are already set based on the configuration of my system here. So it's very simple to use. Okay, so here we have a ready template for us to use. So the trigger here is whenever a new email arrives, this particular flow is triggered. And the system understands that a particular email can have more than one attachment, and it readily sets up a for loop for that case. And then it identifies all of the fields of interest based on how we've trained the model. And it sends finally an email with all of that information that we require or we are interested in. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is to save this flow. So to test it, we will need to send an email with an invoice document along with it with a subject filter AI builder. So let me create a new message here. Let me forward this mail to myself. All right. So we've received a mail with the subject AI builder with an attachment as required. Okay, let's save our flow here. Now that we've saved our flow, here we can see that the model has been, or the particular flow has been triggered and the status is set to running. All right. So we were to open our email here. The flow was successful. It was able to extract the information that we required. So the bill to information, the contact information, the balance due information, all of that has been extracted with a confidence score as well. So that's pretty much it. So as part of this demonstration, what we were successful with was we were able to use the features of AI Builder as part of our automation, use that cognitive intelligence within Power Automate, and extract all of that information of all the entities of interest. And then through the feedback loop, send a mail to ourselves saying what has been extracted. So this particular example has various use cases in the business world. It can be used in various departments within an organization or even between various businesses themselves. It's true with mining, it's true with um, manufacturing. So it's a very common use case. So that's pretty much it from a demonstration standpoint. Thank you. All right. So as part All right, so that was a video on how you could use AI Builder and Power Automate as part of building a flow. Like I said, this is something which we come across often. Many of our clients ask us for this particular scenario, and this is something which we demonstrate quite often. So let's talk about, just give me a second here. All right, so, okay, we're done with the demonstration. So let's talk about the Automation Center of Excellence. Say you're interested in wanting to go build your power automation journey, uh, and these are the certain things which you want to look for. A typical enterprise consists of citizen developers. You would have your automation COE members, the infrastructure operations, the general automation COE governance guardrails team, and your executive sponsors. So these are certain things which each of these personas would be interested in. A citizen developer is someone he what they would need is they need to be trained about Power Automate. They will need that right information to know what processes to choose as part of their automation journey, right? So some of the things which our team does is we work with the citizen developers of our various clients and help them through this process. Onto, hey, how do you identify a particular process? How do you design them? What should be your test processes? And how would you would finally deploy them onto production and have them maintained while they are in production? So that's one of the thought processes when we talk to citizen developers. With the automation COE members, these are folks who oversee what the citizen developers do, right? They want to make sure that the code that's been promoted onto production is of good quality. So they have code review sessions to that end. And also to move code from, say, from your dev environment to your test and test on to prod, you want to leverage ALM as part of it, right? So the automation COE members help in building the base structures on how an ALM pipeline is built in Azure and how you could train your citizen developers to use it as part of that experience. There's also consistent logging. So you want to make sure that all of the actions that the citizen developers are doing is well logged so that there is that reference if you want to check to see if, hey, if there was any sort of a privacy violation that you must be notified of, all of that information is done through a logging semantic. And of course, monitoring and alerting. So you want to make sure that the processes that you are automating really do generate value. So you also do build reports using, say, Power BI to monitor how these flows are doing, to monitor how these automation is performing, and if it does meet its objectives. So that's some of the things as the automation COE members do. This cannot be successful. RPA implementation cannot be successful without the involvement of your infrastructure operations, because a lot of these processes are running in remote machines, right? So machine management is of paramount importance. Machine provisioning is as of importance as well. Whenever you're looking to scale your automation, it's important to make sure that the machines are provided in due time. So you would need the collaboration of the infrastructure operations team to that effect. And what's extremely important is all of the guardrails which govern how Power Automation works, Power Automate works. And to that point, you want to make sure your environment access is well managed. Your role-based environment access is managed, onto saying who has access to a particular environment and how you're managing that. Is there any sort of a privacy violation that's happened? All of that is managed through a security and governance layer. And finally, our executive sponsors, the folks who are actually sponsoring the RPA implementation itself, what they'd be interested in is to see if the RPA implementation does give you the value that you're hoping for. Does it meet their business objectives? And for which there's the opportunity to build rich dashboards wherein you can show where the processes are at, how much money is saved by having to automate a particular process, and to support it, you would need solid ETL built, a mechanism behind it so that you get all of that data that you need to present as part of your dashboards, and consistent data integration across the various sources as the need might be. So this is what you would think of when you're building an automation center of excellence. This is a basic structure into seeing who those stakeholders you'd be wanting to involve and what their various function within the organization would be. So the next steps, so we do have a lot of training sessions, and we do have a lot of rich documentation around how to use RPA and implement RPA. So these are some of the areas which you might want to leverage. These are some of the links. I can send this document over to you folks, so you always have the opportunity to go read them if you're interested further. So that's pretty much it. So I'm open for any questions you may have.
Yes, and there are many. This is fantastic, Ashwin. I think people are just so interested because it isn't front and center in their day-to-day life in M365, right? Power Automate's a little to the side. You've got maybe BAs using it. And so RPA and AI Builder is kind of a newer concept for them. But so there's a lot of questions. I'm just going to run through them and feel free, anybody come off mute. The first one is, do you know if the business process flows are powerful enough to replace much of, and you may not have context, but much of what ServiceNow has been adopted to do? So thinking of it as a replacement to help with system strategy.
Well, there are they solve two different challenges, right? What business process automation does, so the thought process there is it gives you a guided experience, right? So if there are 10 folks in your org and 10 folks in a particular department, and they have a common objective into saying, hey, this is how a particular process has to be done. The 10 folks may not be doing it the same way, right? There might be 5 of them who might be doing it a certain way and 5 of them who might not be doing it that way. And what the idea is, you want to make sure it's streamlined and you want everyone to follow a certain process on how they are doing a set of actions. So that's what business process flows does. It gives you that guided experience onto saying this is how it should be done, right? So they're totally two different thought processes. And even when you have someone new come into your team, uh, it gives them a sort of a hint driven workflow mechanism, right? So it tells you, hey, this is the button you'll have to click, this is where you'll have to enter your ID. So it gives you that guided experience in how you want to run a certain process. But ServiceNow, the thought process is very different. You wanting to raise tickets, you want to have support staff to look into those tickets, and it's a mechanism in wherein folks from different teams communicate through a common engine. In terms of training people on how to use ServiceNow, that's probably something you can do using business process flow automation. But it won't really substitute ServiceNow itself.
So we have another user, or member here that they use Nintex RPA in a banking environment. They import spreadsheets and make changes to customer accounts. Is this something possible with Power Automate or with RPA?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very common use case, especially use cases that involve regarding the use of spreadsheets and taking in your data from spreadsheets, writing to spreadsheets, passing that data from the spreadsheets onto a third-party web page. All of that is possible within Power Automate.
All right, I know some folks are interested in licensing links, so I'll let you do that in a little bit. Let me get down to another question, which is, Can object detection identify labels and extract information from specific areas, like product or shipping labels?
Of course, it can. So if you have a desktop application that you're looking to automate, you could definitely identify labels. If you're looking for, say, a document that you're wanting to send over, and you're looking to identify information in that document, that's possible as well using AI Builder. So the example which I just showed pretty much demonstrated that. So you can identify key fields of interest in your document.
And I've even seen RPA or object detection being utilized at stores in the
Right.
retail area where you're actually monitoring shelving unit and having a dashboard of what you might be out of based on object detection. So then you are automatically creating an inventory request when goods are low on a certain item. So I know I've seen that. So I don't know if that helps at all, but definitely object detection. And I wish that we were back in Edina in our Microsoft Technology Center where we did have a camera that came up and did a lot of different, I guess, Azure cognitive services
Right.
to be able to detect different things. Even look at, I think, some of you might remember being back in the center where it could do like a guess on your age or a celebrity lookalike. So there's some really cool things that are happening in kind of that space. So there was another question around if an object was to be acted on and is an image only PDF, can OCR be performed, or does the PDF need to have some sort of like text, a text layer?
It does do a good job with images, but what we really recommend is that if you're looking to identify text, it works best with the AI Builder function. But you can identify images as well. The problem with it is there's a high level of variance when it comes to images, and usually when the position is not set right, it can be difficult. But with text, you have the tooling really can search through the document for that particular text field itself, which you can't really do well with an image. So it works best with text than images.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I saw you be able to extract data on a PDF in the
Right.
same process, of a Microsoft Word document. So
Right.
I'm just training it. So hopefully, I hope that answers your question in the chat here. Um, let's see. I think we also had how is AI Builder licensed? I did put in the link. So maybe talking just for a second around, if you can. I'm not sure. If you have anything to offer around licensing, because this is really licensing. It's not like I'm gonna buy an M365 subscription, right? This is really capacity driven, or depending on type of flow, it might be per user or it might be per plan. So I don't know if you could address that a little bit, Ashwin.
Oh, that's an area I'm not very familiar with, Michelle, around licensing. But I can definitely send links around that, how licensing is managed.
I do have one link I'll go ahead and share. With
Excellent.
Power, yeah, absolutely. And with Power Automate, there's a per user plan. There's a
Right.
per user plan with attended RPA, and then there's a
Right.
per flow plan. So it's really dependent on which route you take, and don't try to figure it out on your own. I'd say if you have an idea, work with your Microsoft account team to really get a good total estimate on what it may cost depending on the type of plan. So I'll throw the link in here. But I don't think it's always just one answer. I think it's figuring out what's the right way of how you want to approach it. And what does per user per month mean? Does that mean you only then set aside one user that does all of this? So it's just a lot more to think about.
For sure.
Yep. So let's see. I think there's another question. Let's see, on licensing again on Dataverse,
Okay.
and if it's included. And then we've got many folks seem to think that rolling out the Power Platform is as easy as assigning a license. Yeah, it's definitely not. It does seem like, and this is the question, does creating the Circle of Excellence, the Power Platform Circle of Excellence, a good first step in initiating governance around, really around the whole thing, including RPA.
Absolutely, for sure. So the first thing you want to think of is building that center of excellence, is to make sure that you've identified all of your stakeholders from a citizen developer standpoint, from a overall guidance guardrail standpoint. So that's important to establish, and it's important that you do this very early in your journey, because once you have processes developed, it's very difficult to pull them back to saying, "Hey, this is what you'll have to do. This is how you'll have to follow your processes. These are the kind of security measures you'll have to take." By that time, you've already lost ground. So it's very important to make sure that all of these guardrails are set up initially, and make sure that the team alignment is right there from the get-go.
Oh,
So center
agree.
of excellence is super important. Yes.
Totally agree. There's another technical things with your recording the video. I thought it was fantastic
Oh,
to
thank you.
just get everyone to see what does the process look like. And so around that, they wanted to know where are the documents and recorded videos uploaded to?
For sure. So for this particular video which I shared, I can send the PowerPoint deck over to you, Michelle, and you can distribute it to the rest of them as well.
Sure.
So it's embedded within the PowerPoint itself, so it should come with it.
Right, but I think they might mean in like doing the training model and uploading the documents.
Okay.
Where are those located, or what did they upload? I think it's SharePoint, but I'll let you let
Oh,
us
for
know.
sure. So the backend, the way it is, it's all of it is managed through the Dataverse itself. So
Okay.
what you're doing, it's only for only for you to train the model, right? So all of those specifics is stored as key value pairs in Dataverse, and then when you give out a real document for it to process, it looks at the Dataverse constructs to identify all of your values. So that's the thought process. So Dataverse is the database management function, which manages all of that.
Fantastic. I know there was questions around licensing around RPA and Dataverse, and I know that the per the user plan of the link that I sent in there, you do get a set amount of Dataverse storage capacity. So something you would go and clean up after you're done probably training your models and reduce it. But I think it's 2 GB file capacity,
Right.
250 megabytes of database capacity. So just something um, to manage. And
Absolutely. Yep.
yeah, and let's see. I think does AI Builder work with Power Automate license included in M365? So that answer should be a link down in the bottom of the chat. There's a really good question here, Ashwin, on are there out of the box dashboards our support team can use to monitor unattended flows across multiple unattended users?
Absolutely. So what we've done is our team, or my team, we've built what we call the automation COE starter kit. So as part of it, you have readily available Power BI dashboards that you could leverage. But what you'd have to do is you'll have to configure it to your ecosystem to make sure that works. But all of the base semantics are already set up as part of the dashboard.
And is that in your previous slide with those 3 links?
Um, could be. Yeah, no, it's not here, but I could definitely send that link over.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. And if you even want to grab those links in your slide and throw them in the chat, I
For
think
sure.
that would be really helpful.
Absolutely. I could do that.
Yep. All right, are there any other questions before we move on to shifts? Well, I thought this was fantastic, and what a great introduction. You definitely did a fantastic job on providing that overview, and hopefully people will start kind of leveraging using RPA inside of Microsoft. We've had it, I don't know, you tell me, how long have we had RPA in for a while? I think it's been a couple of years, right?
It's been a few years now, and
Yeah.
it has enhanced as well with the Power Softomotive acquisition. We are able to support desktop and web-based automation as well. So it's definitely enhanced. And in terms of the Gartner's sequence, we've been called out as a leader, which is pretty good as well. So we are evolving, and yeah, when people are leveraging it all around the world.
Fantastic. Let's see if there's any more questions here. One more. If the model can't process the document, can you catch the event and send a notification?
Yes, of course, you could do that as well. So as part of the workflow, as I was showing, you do have Power Apps to the end of it, right? So you have Power Automate, which downloads all of those documents, saves it in a folder, and then you run your model. And at the end of it, you have Power Apps. So with Power Apps, what you could do is you could look through the document itself to make sure anything has been missed. But you also have the option of setting up notifications in case the confidence score goes down, right? So if the document wasn't well processed because that document was different from many other documents it's processed and it's a curveball for the algorithm, then there is an option wherein you can send out a notification so that a user can manually do it.
Right, and that's based on the accuracy, right? I had seen it said 99% accuracy. So could you say, hey, if we see anything 98 or below, get notified?
Of course, yes. You can capture that accuracy quotient that the bot validates, and you could then send out a notification to say yourself saying, hey, the bot wasn't really very sure about this particular data extraction. Can you go check it? Right?
Mhm.
So there's always human in the loop, especially when there is processes with high level of variance.
Mhm.
So if there are 20 documents that you're sending over, 19 of them are alike, the algorithm can solve it. But there is one that is a outlier, then the algorithm would tell you, well, I'm not able to process it as much as I would like to, and it would send a notification to the user. So the user can go look at that one document and process it himself.
Yeah, and I have seen this with sentiment analysis too. So you
Right.
can you can set your own sentiment analysis, detecting and determining, a positive or a negative or kind of a neutral sentiment. And then based on that, if it's really negative, you'd probably want to know if somebody said something that was more negative, or,
Right.
geared towards that. And that's a part of AI Builder too, where you're getting a response back based on how people are, through really natural language
Right.
on their sentiment for, I guess any existing conversation.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you for staying later than expected, Ashwin. And we loved having you. We appreciate your time. And I think this has been a fantastic session. These will, of course, we're being recorded right now, and we'll go ahead and have this on our YouTube video at all. And if there's any further questions, throw them in the chat. I'll make sure Ashwin gets them. I know he's probably got to get off to a meeting. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Don, turning it over to you. Let's learn about shifts.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ashwin, again. Nice job. Okay, so we're going to change it just a touch. So shifts, if you're not familiar with Microsoft Shifts, this is an app that you have inside Microsoft Teams that you can use. And yes, it does say for first line workforce, but it can be utilized in multiple different scenarios. And one of those scenarios we are going to talk about just a little bit is being able to do this whole hybrid work scenario that a lot of companies are dealing with right now. And that hybrid work is really those that go into the office, we want to make sure that they're safe, right? We're still in the midst of COVID. We still need to follow a lot of those guidelines. Not as many people in the office, those types of things that we need to do. Let's talk about how we can use this as part of that process. So first off, just myself, I think you guys know me from here, but I moved on to Microsoft about a year and 3 months ago, 2 months ago now. I am a modern communication CSM. I moved from being a Teams meeting arranger to this role now, and I work with customers really wrapped around Teams voice, Teams meetings. But I pick up a lot of things, and shifts is just one of those things that I've had to deal with. And in fact, my previous organization I worked with, they were looking at shifts for different areas, and so we had to really deep dive into it to understand it. So I am a husband, father. That's my family, and I also play drums on the side to get some of that angst out of just normal wear and tear. That's my Twitter and LinkedIn information. You can reach out if need be. So today what I want to do is I really want to talk about just overview what is Shifts app for Teams. What is it? High level, what can you do with that? And then getting started with shifts. And we're going to get into just a little bit. I'm going to just walk you through what that experience is. We'll demo afterwards and kind of talk through how we're going to utilize it for managing those in-person employees in a hybrid work scenario. All right, so first off, let's just talk high level. What is Shifts? It's really, I mean, it's part of Teams, right? It's an app inside Teams, as I was kind of mentioning before. But it then integrates into that team that you already have built for your group, and it gives you that capability of a schedule, right? So, you know, if I have frontline workers, this is a great opportunity to be able to have, you have your chat, you have your conversations happening, but then they can flip that over, and from their mobile app, they can literally get their schedule. What are they working on? What are they doing? The nice thing, it's all built in, which is really nice. And the fact is, it is all within the enterprise security side of things, right? So you already have those accounts set up. You don't have to worry about if it bleeds out, right? That information is all built into Teams and how it's set up. All right, so it is a schedule management tool, obviously built into Teams for your communication side of things. But an example, as you see here, it's literally, I can set shifts, and I have this capability of being able to do open shifts. I have this capability of being able to say this person's working on this particular day. So it's very easy. Once you start into it and we walk through it, you'll see it's actually pretty easy to be able to get up and get created and set up. And there's some pretty good features in there to make it easier for you to be able to do it. So your schedule management, it is about creating and updating. You do have somebody who is an owner of a particular team that would have that capability of creating that schedule for that team. Built into it is being able to, you know, if I want that open shift, I can just take that shift. If I want to be able to, as a manager, I want to be able to schedule people directly, I can do that. But if maybe something comes up and I need to be able to swap, I have that capability. Or I need to put my PTO in, I have those capabilities right into that tool. We'll walk through the web experience, we'll walk through the mobile experience so you can kind of understand a little bit of how that works. As I mentioned, it's all identity access management. So we literally scope this to a team. That's your group that you're working with. And then additionally, from a back-end perspective, you know, IT admin security, it's through Teams, right? Just like we do normal users, we can do it from here. So let's get started. First off, let's just, you know, let's pretend you don't have it enabled, right? Let's pretend that from an IT side, it's you go in and you don't find it in Teams, right? So what has to happen first before somebody's able to go in there and be able to use it? So the first thing is your Teams administrator will need to make sure that that app is available in Microsoft Teams. And you do that through TAC, Teams Admin Center. You go into Manage Apps, and you'll notice that there's all these different apps that are available. So this, the first thing is just make sure that the Shifts app is available, right? And if the status equals allow, that means then, at least from this side of things, it's available and ready to go. Part of it too is it also depends upon what your app permission policies are set up globally, or if you have custom permissions set up or app permissions set up. A lot of organizations do not like to just open the floodgates when it comes to Teams apps, right? And you know, I'm not going to advocate one way or the other. That's up to you and how you want to be able to do that. But it is going to be important, though, that if you are going to allow this type of app to happen, you either are going to allow all apps or you're going to allow specific apps and block all others. When you do that second one, then you have to designate what apps are going to be available so that I can put it into the setup policy to be able to make it available to the groups, right? So whoever needs to have access to it. So that's number one. That's important to make sure is the case. I do have some links in here I'll share with her after the fact so that you have access to those links that kind of show you how to be able to do that. So once you get that done, then you have this ability to be able to create either a, you know, add new app policy or stick it into the global policy depending upon the scope that you want to have, right? So once you do that, you go in there, add it into the pinned apps, and then you can move it up and down depending upon the case. Understand that it's not an immediate. So if I add shifts into it, in this case, I'll do it and show you how it works. But if I add shifts in there, it may not be immediate, especially if it's desktop. It may take some time to get out there. Web, I've seen it move faster. Mobile, again, may take some time. But it gives you that idea that you can very quickly and easily be able to get this out the door if needed. Work with your IT admins or your team's admins to be able to do that. So let's do this quick. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. So I happen to be in Teams admin for this particular tenant, demo tenant. And you'll notice if I go into, again, manage apps, and I search for shifts, okay, notice this one is allowed. Now, in this particular tenant, I've allowed all the Microsoft, right? So for my permissions policies, if I go into global, you'll notice that I have allow all apps with Microsoft apps. But this is what I was talking about, is if you choose to do it this way, right? Allow specific apps and block all others. This is where you're going to have to go in here and you're going to have to say, I want to be able to bring the Shifts app. First off, it has to be allowed. Then you're able to add it in this way. And I can say add, allow, and this is where I can then say which apps do I want to have available, even if they are Microsoft apps, right? So I have this capability to be able to then build which ones I want to make available. In this case, I want to keep it as what I have currently. So then what do? So I go into my setup policies and depending upon your organization and how you want to do it, and for this particular thing, if you want to do a test bed, you can just create a brand new setup policy and then apply that to your test users, right? So you just go in, add a new setup policy, name it. Right, so name it shift policy, and then you can go in there and add that app. Now, the nice thing about this is once you have it in here, you can move it up, you can move it down, or you can remove whatever you want to have in this case, right? So then this goes into the left rail, or if it's mobile, you'll see it on the bottom of that mobile app. Okay, so very easy to be able to get that in there. The next step is then apply it to those pilots or those people, and you can do that for the users, you can do that through PowerShell. Okay, so high level, you got to get the app available. Once the app is available, then you would start seeing it in the left rail. If it is allowed, you can search for it by going into the dots and then search for it here. Since I've been using it, obviously it's going to show up, but you can actually search from here. Again, it has to be allowed first. Okay, and we'll get to this a little bit more on how this works. Questions so far? Awesome.
Nope, no questions.
All right, so let's actually get into how do you get a shift set up for your team? How does it work? How do you configure some of these pieces? Okay. So as I was kind of mentioning, it is based off of a team. So you have to have a team that you want to do this. And you have to be the owner of those teams to be able to set up that shift schedule, right? So if you're started from scratch, highly suggest you do make it a public team, right? Not a private team, which then creates that private offshoot, right? But a private team, a public team, I should say, and label it accordingly. In this particular demo, it's Contoso, Princeton planned, and then add users into it. So this is one thing to keep in mind, that you do need to make sure that those users are added into the team to be able to have access to it. I know when I was working with this, in my previous organization, that was one thing that a lot of times the question would come back, oh, I can't find them. I can't see them to add them to the schedule. Well, do they have access to the team, which is the underlying part of the Shifts app, right? So you need to have access first. They don't have to have ownership first. They just need to have, have access, right? They can just be a member. So important. All right. Oh, I got to add somehow. All right, so creating the shift. So then as the owner, you would actually go into the Shift app, and then you would see the different teams that you have access to. Select that team and say create. And then from there, you want to confirm what is the time zone for that particular area, what's the closest city, make sure you have that set up correctly, and then go ahead and confirm. All right, so then now you have it, right? So what are some of the steps that you want to be able to do? You might want to be able to add members into that group, right? You might want to create new groupings depending upon how you want that schedule to be set up. It could be different parts of a building. It could be different parts of, from a work schedule perspective, could be different floors within a plant, right? So you want to be able to do those and group those accordingly depending upon the scenario that you have set up. In the case of the hybrid work, it could be you have a location, that could be the team, and then in that location, you may have different floors that you want people to be able to sign up for, to be able to say, I'm going to be in the office on this particular day. So again, it depends upon how you want to organize it. Right? And again, Beth is going to say, he said the word depends again. Yes, I say that a lot because there's a lot of fluctuations that are happening with organizations. All right. So then in this case, we can go ahead and add a group in here, depending upon how we want to structure it. We can rename that group, save it, and then go from there. We then can add those members that we want to be able to do. And you'll see once we get into the demo a little bit, that add people button, and then you can, again, have to be part of that team and bring them in. Then you can add shifts, and shifts, the way they work is you can do them as like part of that open shift that anybody that can grab if that's the case, or you can assign it to somebody inside that group. In the case of the hybrid work from home, we would do it as an open, and then people sign up for that or request that particular, that place, right, for them to come in and sit. Not all of them need it, right? Just depending on your scenario. When you create a shift, you have some options. You can change the color so it stands out based off of what time of the day it is. You can say if it's an open shift, it's a toggle if you want to start there, or per particular person, when is that shift? You can go put a label on there. You can even say if there's an unpaid break that needs to be a part of it, even some shift notes. The nice thing about the shift notes is you could hey, please make sure you check this out when you're starting this particular shift. It could be, when you're doing the hybrid work piece, it could literally be, hey, just double check, and here's our information, here's the URL, blah, 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 blah. It's in there. The other thing you'd add is actual activities. Right? What are they supposed to be doing during that particular shift? And if it's, frontline workers, if it's a factory floor, hey, make sure you're checking in at this time, or make sure that you're talking to Bob about X, Y, and Z. Those are the things that you can put in there. And we'll talk about that in a second as far as how that works. Okay, so these are those shift activities I was kind of mentioning, right? So as an example here, you could say, whatever that activity happens to be, maybe they need to be, for their particular role, they need to be in this section doing some quality work first, then they come over into the section here and they have to do some, up testing and training, and then they go back to their quality work later on. So you could literally dictate how that works. Notice you have the ability to be able to put a color code that if needed, when does it start, and then of course, is it paid or not? Now, in our hybrid scenario, we don't necessarily care about that paying side of things, but then if it's actual, frontline workers or store workers, that may be something that they care about. So once you get those shift activities in, then you'll see that the shift starts showing those, and you can edit those after the fact. Now, keep this in mind. I'm doing all this before even my employees get this information, right? So I'm doing it as an owner. I'm not ready to get it out there quite yet. Okay. Now I can build what my month happens to be, depending upon the scenario, right? So you have this ability to be able to, literally copy and paste. If I do keyboard shortcuts, it's Control C, Control V. But if I want to go in and go into Teams and use my mouse, I can do that as well. I can highlight and paste. I can't click and drag and paste. That doesn't work in this situation, but it does give me some easy ways to be able to create that shift schedule for that particular time period that I want it to be. Important last step, once you get that schedule figured out, how you want it to look, how you want it to feel, then it's important to get it out to the team. And that's through that share with team option. The nice thing about that is if depending upon, how long you want that schedule to be, you can then share it by week, and you share it by multiple weeks, and you share it by month if you want to, right? By clicking on that share button, now you can decide what parts of that schedule you want to be able to share. Maybe you want to do it for the next 2 weeks, and then you need to change some things up after that. Then you can share the next 2 weeks, and then you can go ahead and work behind the scenes on the schedule for that third week, right? You also have this capability of who to send it out to, right? So if there's any changes to the schedule, right? Something may have gotten switched around, or we had something new that came in that we needed to add to that, right? You have this ability to be able to send notifications to the entire team or only affected team members for those changes. So very easy to be able to get that information out, but that's important. And then if any changes comes up, you have to reshare it out, and that's where those two buttons come in. I also can copy the schedule. So you get it down, you get it pat. You don't have to do the individual. You can literally take, I want this week, or I want these 2 weeks. I want this schedule for this particular set period. Please grab everything, right? It could be notes. It could be time off. It could be open shifts. It could be, what do you want? Do I want to copy the people that are in there too, the group? I can copy that, and then I can move it to another location. It makes it easy to be able to reuse something that you may have done month to month, if that's the case. All right, so it's published. At this point, now those people within that group, within that team, have access to that schedule, then can go in, and then in my scenario, they are going to go and pick and choose, where they want to basically sit, if that's the case. And that's because we're doing the open shift concept. Now, if they were assigned a particular shift, right, this section is not needed at all to be able to do that. It's really about the open shift request, but it's also about, maybe it's a PTO request, maybe it's a swap. There's some other options that we have here. This is a section that I see as an administrator to be able to see what those, requests are. Say Megan said, I'd like to be able to do these days. And Alex said, I'd like to be able to do these days. And as that owner, I have the ability to be able to, I can approve all if I want to very easily. If I want to be able to reject something because maybe, Alex and our rules for our team, we're only supposed to be maximum in the office 3 days a week, but Alex decided he needed to do another fourth one and put a note in there. He had a client meeting coming up. So I can then look at that and decide, oh, okay, yeah, I'll let him, but Alex, this other one that you did, I can't let you do that because, again, only three a week, that type of scenario. Right, so I have this ability to be able to manage those things. And then as notes come in, I can then set a note up there. It goes back to Alex, and then Alex will see that information in his Shifts app in Teams. Doesn't matter if it's mobile or web or desktop. All right, some additional settings that we have that the owner then can go and do. Of course, we can change the time zone. If we need to, what's the start of the week, depending upon the company and how they do things. Do we want the ability to be able to copy the shifts or not? And then do we need them to be able to do open shifts? Are we going to do open shifts at all? So, if we don't even worry about that, then just turn it off. And then what type of time off requests do we want them to be able to do? That's from that, employee perspective, as they're going there and say, I need some time off to do X, Y, and Z. In the hybrid work scenario I was talking about, you may not even care about these. So you may want to remove these, okay? Because they're not necessarily needed in this case. Also know there is a time clock option. And this is a time tracker. So they literally have the ability to be able to clock in and clock out utilizing the Teams app Again, it doesn't matter if it's desktop, web, or mobile. And currently, there are 2 connectors available. And this would be for companies that maybe utilize Kronos or Blue Yonder for tracking that type of employee and being able to pay and be able to track what they're doing. And so you would have the IT people be able to go in the pack, make that connection between shifts and that, be able to have that consistency, right? So they can still get paid, they can still do things. Otherwise, Shifts is a standalone app. And like Kronos or Blue Yonder, that would be a secondary app that they would have to manage. A lot of companies don't like to do that. They like to connect things and make it consistent across the board. So you have this capability, and again, I'll throw that link in as we move forward. All right, any questions on the owner side of things, the settings, how that experience looks? Because we're going to jump to the employee side just so you can kind of see what that looks like, and then we can do a quick demo on all that and show you how to be able to easily get it set up. Looks like there's nothing in there, but if you have a question, please come off mute. All right. Take it I'm doing a good job getting you guys all the right information. Okay, so from an employee perspective, it does look a little bit different, right? So you'll have in desktop and web, and I'll show you mobile as well, but you have the schedule, you'll have the requests sections that you can go in there. You can take a look at this. Like an example, Alex, looking at it from his perspective, you'll see all the open shifts, and I can click on an open shift, and then it will give me the ability to be able to do the request. Now you'll notice this is the note, and these are the activities that we had put into for from the creating that actual shift. Okay, so then I can say, I want to request that particular, in this case, shift for me to come into the office. That then goes into the request section. In the request section, you'll notice an in progress and a completed. In progress is the manager, the owner is looking at it, hasn't said yes or no yet. Obviously completed, those have been either accepted or rejected. Inside the request area, you also have this ability to be able to do, and this is your, PTO, this is your time swap, this is a, I offer this to somebody to pick up type scenario. And especially in a, frontline worker scenario, this is going to be key for people to be able to get in there and literally be able to say, hey, something come up, can someone pick up my shift, right? That works. It could also work in our hybrid scenario we're going to be talking about a little bit, but realistically more frontline. All right, looks like Lynette. Question, absolutely, Michelle. Yes, we can copy your day shift across for the week. You can take the week shift. We'll walk through that a little bit and show you how easy it is to be able to do that. Yeah, there is, Lynette. We'll walk through that here quickly. The mobile app experience from an end user employee. Similar, it just looks a little bit different, right? You have the home screen where you can go into the Shifts app. In the Shifts app, you'll see when your next shift is, and then all open shifts, all our shifts, and even requests. You can even see the teams that you're associated to. You can also see if I go into the open shifts, then I can select from there, put in the request, just like I did from the desktop or from the web. And then I can see those that are in progress or completed. And then finally, if I click on that plus sign, I have the ability to swap shift, offer a shift, or request time off, depending upon how I have that set up. All right, so I saw something come in. See, it looks like Jason, have you heard of connectors possible being considered for SAP? I think that would be a great idea. I have not heard that, and I don't think I saw on the roadmap, but that's something that we'll keep an eye out for. But right now, I don't think it's on anybody's long-term roadmap. But SAP and Microsoft seem to be starting to do a lot lot more things together recently, so I wouldn't say it's probably not going to happen. I'd say it's probably going to happen. Members have limited options when it comes to revisiting or canceling time off requests, for instance, and that's been a deterrent for our staff. Yeah, and especially if the owner is out. Yeah, are there any updates coming in? I mean, the only thing I could see, Rachel, would be having multiple owners to be able to handle that type of thing. That way, if somebody happens to be on a PTO, they can manage that. So that's always backup. I think that's just standard in general. But canceling a time off request, that's a good question. I don't think I've jumped into that one. So I do think there's some things that they do have to work on a little bit to be able to expand the capabilities. But great point. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about return to work, office space distancing. Why are we doing this? I mean, we know that as COVID continues to drag out, we really, really need to keep that in mind. So what office space facility, directors are thinking about is how many people can we actually have on a floor? What does it look like? And that's changed how we work in person, right? Abiding by those new safety protocols, limiting the number of seats per location. So the solution really looks at utilizing shifts little differently than what we do from a frontline worker, but still works, right? That capability to be able to set up floors within a particular building, and then have somebody then say, I want to sign up for that. The owner, or maybe it's a facility manager, then can control who has the ability to do it, or it could be by department, right? So it really depends upon how you want that to work. What does it look like for your organization? Is it department managers, or is it facility managers that are dealing with that? So then when you set up that particular schedule, decide how many spaces are available, then where are they going to sit, then you can manage and track that throughout. And then give them the ability to be able to have employees swap spaces as needed is going to be important. Determine your business requirements as anything else that we do, right? How long can an employee be in the building? How many employees can be at that location or that floor? Who's responsible for creating it? Do employees self-select or go through an approval process? So all things you have to kind of consider when going through this process. And of course, user adoption. Let's get the documentation, let's get the training, support for those people who have to manage this to get it up and running. All right, so let's just jump into it again. Okay. So as mentioning, you have to have a team set up, right? So in this case, I do have a team set up, and this happens to be an administrator account that happens to be in here. I created a Dyna location team, and I already added some users into that team. So if I manage my team, you'll notice that I have myself as the owner, and I have these 4 people that are in it. Again, they have to get through that front door. That front door is Teams per se. All right, so you start there. The next step is going into shifts. As I mentioned, depending upon if that app has been published, people have access to it, great. They do have to have access to it. If the shifts, and this takes me into this look. Now, I will tell you, if you have more than one team that has a shift schedule, the first thing you're going to get is a listing of all the different schedules or teams that have shifts. That's important to understand. You may get this interim panel popping up first, and then you can change teams as necessary. Here's an example of one that I did for the Edina location, specifically the different floors that we may have available. But let me move to next week and kind of walk you through how this whole process works. Okay, so notice the different sections, schedule, requests, and settings. Again, because I'm an owner, I can change my days, my weeks, where I'm at here. I also have views. I can print. How do I want to look at it? That's the day, week, month. I have different filter views or filters I can look at for particular people. I can do it by people, or I can do it by shift, right? So if I do it by shift, it's different. In this case, I have it set up as 5th floor, 6th floor, and 7th floor. I can see exactly how many people have assigned or have requested and been accepted for that particular location, right? So I can look at it from a different perspective. Much easier to be able to do it from there. Okay, we're gonna go back to people for a second. Of course, these are my shifts that I have and the people that I have in my group. So in this case, I'm gonna go to next week. And I'm just gonna build this out very quickly. We're gonna start on Monday. I'm going to go into my open shifts because this is where I want to start doing things. I want to add my shift. Okay. So similar to what you saw, zoom in a little bit, similar to what you were seeing before, I have this ability to be able to say, I can change color, I can change the number of slots. In this case, because we have 36 on this particular floor available, I can go there, right? It's an open shift. If I uncheck that, then I could assign it to somebody from here. And what do I want to do? I want to do 8 to 5. We'll do that. And I'm going to say 5th floor. Okay, so that's going to show instead of the time. Do we want unpaid break? No, we don't worry about that. Check out our policy add. And don't go there, nothing's there, but just for example. All right, I'm going to add an activity. So I have this ability to be able to change the color. I can literally say things like check temperature. Is this paid? No, it's not a paid activity. I can say, when do I want to have this? I can say add, write down desk for starting work. Notice it will automatically add a code. In this case, it's just incremental. We're just going to go with it for now. All right, so these are the things that I'm going to have them do ahead of time. Just go, okay, done with this. Those activities come down here. If I want to ever edit it, then I can edit it after the fact. Okay, so I think we're good at this point. We're going to go ahead and save that. Okay, so that's my 5th floor. I can do same thing if I want to add a new shift. And maybe I want to do a different color. We'll go green this time. This is going to be 6th floor. Again, 36. Eight to 5. Do a couple of these. Change the color, got my green. No. And all right. Done. Save. All right. So let's say we got it done. Still got 7th and 8th floor, but that's okay. If I want to be able to take this and then copy this across, I can do a couple things. So the first thing is I can actually highlight both of these. I can Control C on my keyboard to very easily do that. And then I can go and Control V across the week. If I wanted to do one, all right, I can do this way. I can do a copy. And then I can paste each. Or I can highlight across and paste. All right, so very easily, you can then quickly get the rest of the schedule. Now, if I want this schedule and take it to another week, right? That's where the copy schedule comes in. So I can take the 21st, the 20th through the 26th, take all my notes, take everything that I have set up, and I can move it to the 27th. I can do that pretty easily. I can copy it. And if I go to the 27th, once this is done, I should see the exact same schedule as I had before. Right. So now it's easy to move from one to the next, depending upon how you are getting that figured out. All right. So let's go back up. Okay. So now we have this set up the way I want to. I do need to go and add somebody in. So we had somebody that came onto the team. Again, they have to have access to the group. I can go into add people, and you'll notice it actually looks and says, hey, you notice Grady's not in there. Grady happens to be already into the team. I'm going to go in Grady. I'm going to add him in. Close. Now I see Grady. If I log in as Grady, I'd be able to see it. Now it's going to get published and shared. This particular schedule is going to get published and shared with the regular team, and Grady will be added. So you'll notice here, and again, until you share this team, nobody's going to be able to do any of the scheduling, right? So I'm going to go share the team, and then I'm going to say which week I want to do. I'm still working on this one here. I have stuff. I got the stars showing me I have something in there, but I'm not ready to do that. And then this is that entire team versus an affected member only. All right, so I'm going to go share, and now that share button is gone because it's already out. But if I start making changes, the share button pops back up again. Okay. All right, so as the owner, as the administrator, I got that figured out. But let's go in and take a look at it from a Megan point of view. So if I go into Megan and I go into shifts, okay, thank you, I got it. I appreciate that notification. Notice that Megan has already signed up for a couple days. She still has to sign up for another day for this week. She's thinking Friday, so she's going to go in here, and I think this time she's going to go on the 7th floor. So notice when I click on that, that's when I have this ability to go in and do that request. We'll come back to that in a second because it has to be fulfilled from the administration side. All requests come in here, right? In progress, I just did this one. I did this one yesterday. And you notice if I wanted to, I could cancel that request. Conversely, if I wanted to be able to do a time off, right? And I say, I really, this is not the hybrid work scenario, but maybe it's for something else. I can go in here and say, I'm going to be gone the 7th through the 11th, right? We're going PTO, vacation. And I can go ahead and send that request. You notice that request goes in, but it's set up as a requested time off. That'll go to the owner. The owner has the ability to be able to go and look at it. You'll notice, just like anything else, Megan can go ahead and cancel those requests if needed prior to being approved. Right, so you have that capability, some flexibility on it. Okay, so if I wanted to go to another week, right, I wanted to start looking at next week, I can start doing that same thing here. All right, back into my get back over here. I'm the owner again, or the administrator for this particular team, and I want to be able to go in and take a look at. So you'll notice request time off came in, the request for shift came in. So I have this ability to be able to go in here and then approve or deny. Now, again, this is a standalone, especially for PTO stuff. This is not connected to Kronos or any other tool right now. It's just a standalone. So I could say approved on this end. Okay. Same thing, I can go in here to the shift. And if I have multiple people that have requested to be in a particular shift, I would see them listed here. I select the ones that I want and I approve them. Okay, so it's fairly easy to be able to manage. The training isn't too difficult, but just you get an idea of how that works. Questions? All right. So realistically, there is not much more about shifts. It's a pretty straightforward app. It gives you those tools, especially in a return to work, hybrid work type scenario, that things can go. That's actually a good question. Let's do that. How does that time? I go on my settings. So you'll notice here, you have to actually set it up per team. Right, so if I go in here and it just basically gives me what's going on, we can set up things like location detection where they're at. I don't have all that stuff set up right now, and that's through the mobile app. Turn that on. From an end user perspective, it may actually take time for it to show, but let's see. Let's refresh. Let's get back in the teams here. They'll be, oh, here we go. Oh, that was awesome. Okay, so you'll notice there is the clock in and clock out type thing, right? So then I'm able to say, all right, so Megan, she's clocking in, 2:46, I'm starting my shift. Yeah, okay. Right, so then it'll then have a counter saying exactly what's going on. If I want to, start a break, if I want to, I can check out, I can do that from the backend administration. Think that information then I can export that as a timesheet, and that timesheet then allows me to be able to track what everybody is doing. Okay, again, very simple. It's not connected to any other third-party systems. It's just, literally checking in and checking out, and then I can get that sheet to get more information. Can shifts be tied to bookable resources like conference rooms? Oh, that's
not
good.
Really out of the box. I mean, I can answer that.
Yeah, not out of the box.
It isn't like it's not going to look up your resources that
Yeah.
you set. However, there's a really cool solution that was created around return to workplace for space management. I'm going to throw that link in here. Take a look at that. It's just really interesting. The first portion was using shifts to publish open spaces to employees and then limit employees to work based on location. The second is really around space management and how they're managing, how to do it. So great link to just learn, new ways or ways you can use shifts in kind of our hybrid work and that you're developing within your organization around hybrid work.
Agreed. Yeah, and part of that, Pete, just so you know, is that if you're setting up conference rooms and workspaces, they're considered a resource in exchange behind the scenes. Those are not necessarily available for me to be able to put them as a user in a team. It's not the same type of entity, right? So that's part of the problem with that. But the solution she just threw in there kind of gives you a little bit more as far as from a space side of things and what you kind of do. But the problem is that just because you book it here doesn't mean it's going to show an exchange, right, as a booked room. Any chance for the return to office hybrid model that can auto approve a request? That's you know what? I don't think it actually has that capability. That's where, if I'm not mistaken, I think we may be able to do that through like a Power Automate to be able to go ahead and, as that request comes in, be able to do that. I haven't dived into that one, but I believe that's the solution on it. Any other questions?